My mother tried to pry my wedding band off my finger with a steak knife at my own rehearsal dinner. "You've corrupted everything I made you to be," she hissed, as my now husband tried to shield me. I should have seen it coming, but the truth is, I spent my whole life hoping she would love the real me. My sister Clara and I were raised in a dollhouse, and our mother was the director of a play that never ended. From the time we could walk, our lives were a relentless training montage for a role we never auditioned for: the perfect, submissive wife. We didn't have tea parties. We had posture drills, walking with encyclopedias on our heads while reciting scripts. "Your opinion is less important than his comfort," we'd chant. "A clean house is a wife's true voice." I always felt a knot of rebellion in my stomach, but Clara absorbed it like a sponge. By 14, she was baking from scratch for her boyfriend Mark and leaving notes in his lunchbox that said things like, "Your success is my purpose." Instead of being horrified, our mother beamed with pride, buying Clara a vintage pearl necklace as a reward for her devotion. She was molding her masterpiece, and I was the flawed block of marble, unwilling to be carved. Yet a desperate, childish part of me still craved her approval, a single nod that felt like sunlight. So I became an academic overachiever, burying myself in textbooks and accolades, building a resume I hoped she couldn't ignore. The day I got my full-ride scholarship to Stanford for engineering, I called her, my voice trembling with a hope I thought I'd buried. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, calmly, she said, "All that intelligence, and you still can't see that a woman's true degree is in homemaking." She hung up before I could even process the words. The dream I'd built, the future I'd fought for, was dismissed in a single breath. That was the moment the hopeful little girl inside me finally started to wither.
The final crack in my carefully constructed world appeared a week after the scholarship call. I came home to find Clara in the kitchen, the left side of her face blooming with a purple bruise she'd tried to mask with cheap foundation. When I confronted her, my voice a frantic whisper, she just gave me a hollow smile. "Mark just gets a little passionate sometimes," she said, stirring a pot of soup. "It means he feels things deeply for me. It's how real men love." I felt the floor drop out from under me. In that moment, I didn't just see my sister, I saw the ghost of my own future if I stayed. The training had worked too well. She was lost, and a terrifying, shameful thought whispered in my head. If this was what earned my mother's love, then maybe I should just surrender. In a twisted act of desperation, I started dating a guy named Colin from a community college class. He was possessive, demanding my passwords and tracking my location. It felt like swallowing poison, but when I brought him home for Thanksgiving, my mother's face lit up with a radiant, approving smile I hadn't seen in years. She hugged me, her arms tight around me, and whispered, "Finally, you're learning." The warmth of her embrace felt like a victory, even as my soul felt like it was shrinking. I lasted 4 miserable months with Colin before the constant surveillance and belittling comments shattered my last nerve. I broke it off, and my mother's subsequent silence was colder than any winter. I used that frigid energy as fuel. I graduated, moved across the country for a job at a tech firm, and spent 2 years in therapy, untangling the knots of my upbringing. There, I learned a new vocabulary: boundaries, self-worth, emotional abuse. And then I met Daniel. He was an architect, the calm to my storm. He remembered the little things, like how I take my coffee, and his laughter felt like coming home. He didn't want a devotee. He wanted a partner. When he proposed under the stars on a camping trip, I said yes without a single practiced script running through my head. For the first time, my happiness felt entirely my own. I was naive enough to believe that my family would see that light and be happy for me. I thought the distance and my newfound strength had changed the dynamics. Daniel, ever the optimist, squeezed my hand as we drove to my parents' house for Christmas. "They're your family, Maya. They'll see how happy you are." For a fleeting moment, staring at his profile, I almost believed him. Clara opened the door, and my carefully constructed hope crumbled. She was a specter, moving with a slight limp she tried to disguise. The foundation on her neck couldn't fully conceal the faint, finger-shaped bruises. Her eyes, once bright with a fervent desire to please, were flat and dead. But when they landed on Daniel, who was gently helping me out of my coat, they flickered with something worse than emptiness, pure, unadulterated horror. "Maya," she gasped, her voice a ragged whisper, "you're humiliating him. A real woman
woman would never let a man serve her in public. Before I could respond, my mother descended, her face a mask of hostess perfection that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel, charming and utterly unaware, shook her hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am. I've heard so much. I'm so proud of Maya. She just led a project that landed a multi-million-dollar client." My mother's smile vanished, replaced by a terrifying, cold stillness. "A real man," she said, her voice low and venomous, "doesn't let his woman steal his spotlight." Her hand shot out, a viper strike, and clamped around my wrist, her nails digging deep. And that's when she saw the simple platinum band on my finger. Her face contorted into a mask of pure rage. "You treacherous girl," she shrieked, the sound tearing through the silent, perfectly decorated house. "You've spat on everything I am." Her other hand grabbed at my engagement ring, twisting and pulling. The pain was immediate and searing, a white-hot fire as the metal bit into my flesh. Clara, moving on some deep-seated command, grabbed my shoulders from behind, pinning me in place while my mother wrenched at my hand, trying to rip the symbol of my freedom from my body. "Stop! You're hurting her!" Daniel's voice was a roar, but it sounded distant, muffled by my own screaming. The world narrowed to the agony in my hand and the feral look in my mother's eyes. Daniel was on the phone, yelling at a 911 operator. My father stood in the doorway, a silent, passive statue. My mother, in a final, unhinged lunge, snatched a letter opener from the hall cable and lunged at Daniel. "You poisoned her!" The police and paramedics arrived in a blur of sirens and flashing lights. In the emergency room, they told me my finger was dislocated and lacerated from the ring being forced against the bone. As the local anesthetic dulled the physical pain, a different, colder fury began to burn in its place. The aftermath was a symphony of noise. My mother's frantic, tearful voicemails shifting from rage to pathetic pleas. Daniel, his voice thick with guilt, asking if he was the problem, if he'd pushed too hard. But their voices were just static. A new, clear signal was broadcasting from my core. I was done. With trembling hands, I blocked every number. My mother, Clara, aunts, cousins. Daniel helped me create new email accounts, change all my passwords. It felt like shedding a heavy, suffocating skin. The first week of silence was deafening. I threw myself into work, this sterile, logical environment of code, a welcome refuge from the emotional carnage. I wore my ring on a chain around my neck, the weight of it a constant reminder of the promise I'd made to myself. Then, my boss, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Isabel, called me into her glass-walled office. Her expression was unreadable. "Maya," she began, steepling her fingers, "I received a very concerning call. Your mother insists you've stolen valuable family jewelry and that you're having a mental health crisis, being controlled by your partner." My blood ran cold. She wasn't just attacking me at home, she was coming for my career, the one thing I'd built entirely on my own. I slid my phone across the desk, the screen displaying the digital police report from Christmas. Isabel's eyes scanned the clinical language: assault with a weapon, dislocated finger, attempted theft. Her professional composure cracked, revealing a flicker of shock and sympathy. "I'm trying to get a restraining order," I explained, my voice steadier than I felt. "She's lying because I cut contact." Isabel let out a slow breath. "I believe you, Maya, but she's called 3 times. My assistant took 2 more this morning. If this continues, it will become a disruption. You're up for that lead developer promotion next month." I left her office feeling nauseous. She had found my pressure point. Daniel was waiting for me in the car, his face grim. "How bad?" he asked. I told him everything, my voice shaking. "That's it," he said, his jaw set. "We're not just getting a restraining order, we're filing for harassment. My brother Ben is a lawyer. He'll help us." The fight was no longer about hiding, it was about building a legal fortress. Ben was a godsend, pragmatic, organized, and fiercely protective. That evening, at his apartment, we spread out across his dining table, a mountain of forms and a digital recorder between us. "Document everything," he instructed, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Every call, every text, every lie. We're building a paper trail that leads right to her." I spent hours writing, my hand cramping as I detailed years of manipulation, culminating in the Christmas assault. Daniel sat beside me, a steady, reassuring presence, his hand on on my back. Just as we were finalizing the paperwork, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, but the venom was familiar. It was Clara. "You've ruined everything. Mark left me. He said our family is too much drama, that it makes him look bad. This is your fault. If you had just been normal, he'd still be here. You're going to die alone, just like me." I showed the phone to Ben. He didn't look surprised, just weary. "Save it," he said. "It all adds to the pattern. It shows the environment you escaped." The message wasn't just an attack, it was a confession. In her twisted logic, my freedom had broken her prison, and she would never forgive me for it. The harassment charges were filed on a Tuesday. The courthouse clerk looked at our binder of evidence, photos, logs, police reports, and let out a low whistle. "Thorough," he remarked. But the legal action seemed to pour gasoline on my mother's fury. 2 days later, Isabel called me in again, her face etched with genuine concern this time. "Maya, your mother has been calling other departments. She told accounting you have a gambling problem, HR that you're creating a hostile work environment. She even called our biggest client and claimed you're leaking their data." I sank into the chair, the world tilting. "I'm so sorry, Isabel. I have a restraining order in process." "I know," she interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. "Legal is aware, but the promotion committee meets next week. This kind of disruption, even though it's not your fault, it creates a perception of instability." I left work early, sitting in my car in the parking garage, finally allowing the hot, angry tears to fall. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, of flawless code, of proving myself, about to be vaporized by my mother's relentless campaign. She wasn't just trying to control me, she was trying to erase the person I had become.
The trial was a surreal, public autopsy of our family. My mother, dressed in somber colors, played the part of the heartbroken, persecuted saint for the jury, her church group a solemn choir in the gallery. But our evidence was a sledgehammer. The security footage of her methodically shredding my professional wardrobe with kitchen shears, attaching printed Bible verses about wifely submission to the tattered fabric, silenced the room. The lipstick scrawled death threat on my mirror, "I made you, and I can unmake you," made several jurors flinch. But the turning point was Clara. Taking the stand, her voice was barely a whisper at first, then grew stronger as she described the training, the constant monitoring, the way our mother had systematically isolated and broken her. When the prosecutor asked about Mark, Clara revealed the truth our mother had hidden. She didn't save me from him. She called his workplace 19 times, telling his boss what a devoted woman I was. He was fired for the disruption. She drove him away, just like she's trying to destroy Maya's life. The only difference is Maya found someone strong enough to stay. The gavel slammed down as my mother screamed "liar" from the defense table, her mask shattering for the entire court to see. The verdict was guilty on all counts, as the judge sentenced her to significant prison time and extended the restraining order to a decade. I felt no victory, only a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. The woman who gave me life was led away in handcuffs, her eyes holding not remorse, but a final, chilling promise. In the months that followed, Clara moved in with Daniel and me. Therapy was a painful, slow excavation. Some days she was my sister again, others she was our mother's echo. But she was trying. My career, after a rocky period, found new footing at a smaller, understanding firm. Isabel, in the end, became a mentor, telling me, "You stood up to yours. Most people never do." On our first wedding anniversary, Daniel and I renewed our vows in a sun-drenched backyard, surrounded by his family and friends who had become our own. Clara stood by my side as my maid of honor, her smile still fragile but real. We learned through official channels that our mother was paroled after 18 months, bound to a different state. The silence that has followed has been our greatest blessing. The last I heard, she found a new congregation to preach to about her daughters led astray by the modern world. Let her talk, let her pray. Her voice is just an echo from a distant shore, and we have finally, blessedly, learned to stop listening.